their futures. People who travel to our city to worship or to enjoy time with friends and family should never feel threatened or intimidated by the prospect of violence. Our city workers, whether they are teachers, building inspectors, social workers, paramedics, firefighters, sheriff deputies, or police, deserve to be safe and respected as they protect and serve all of us. Those who disrupt their critical work will be held accountable for unlawful behavior. Our city workers, residents, and visitors deserve to feel safe, and our businesses deserve the ability to operate in peace. Our short-term strategies and long-term initiatives to curb violence includes increased police presence throughout the city, introducing a zero-tolerance public safety strategy, employing high-tech law enforcement tools in areas experiencing a surge in criminal activity, partnering with peacemakers to assist with de-escalation training, and focusing in on the social and economic factors that breed crime. But we cannot address this violence alone. Those committing crimes must be held accountable in our courts. A strong and effective prosecutory team is critical to the safety of our city and for the voice of victims. Norfolk residents deserve a prosecutory philosophy and practice that keep offenders off the streets. Maintaining a safe city is our #1 priority, and we will do everything we can as a council to ensure public safety. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Norfolk was a city with a growing sense of safety where residents were focused on building careers, families, and communities. COVID-19 has created problems in interpersonal relationships that have been socially and economically disruptive. Many are asking the question, how did we get here? But we are asking the question, where do we go from here? The citizens have spoken. They are demanding a city where everyone feels safe, a city that allows them to focus on building their careers, families, and communities. Public safety is a shared value and a collective effort. Maintaining a safe city takes more than an engaged police force. It takes community partners. It takes a holistic approach. Whether crime reports are exaggerated, underplayed, or accurate, one thing is for certain: residents and corporate citizens are highly concerned about safety. As a city, we must continue to lay out our expectations for change. Through persistence, political will, violence prevention, and opportunity, tougher penalties, gun control, and supporting public safety, and most importantly, personal responsibility, we will return to an era focused on building careers, families, and communities where people know they are safe. Thank you. Dr. Filer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to keep my remarks short. We'll open it up to some questions. We do have Chief Goldsmith here this afternoon to speak to some of the additional items that we found and with respect to the investigation last night. I just want to personally say on behalf of the administration here, you can sense the frustration in the mayor's voice. We are getting very tired of doing this on a consistent basis. We've tried a number of initiatives, we've tried a number of efforts, all of which seem to not be getting us where we want to be. I am calling a special meeting of my own trusted partners cabinet. That meeting will take place within the next couple weeks. The purpose of that meeting will be to try and identify some additional initiatives that we can take to try and stem the violence that we are seeing in our communities. We have a city that over the last 6 years has a poverty rate that has fallen, a median income rate that has risen, and the number of those working that has risen. And yet we are seeing more crime today than we saw 6 years ago. I think all of us are trying to figure out where that's coming from, why it is happening, and as the mayor said so perfectly, where do we go from here? I am tired of looking back at revisionist history, trying to figure out how we got here. From today forward, we are going to find meaningful, actionable efforts to stem this violence in this city and make this the city that we all know and want and can live in peacefully and thrive. So with that, we're happy to take any questions you may have on the events from last night or anything else that you may have questions on.
And sir, can you just provide a timeline of when it happened, when police responded, and then how long it took for you guys to bring out the full information to the public? And is there any danger to the public?
Certainly. So if we want to ask some questions about last night, I'm going to call up Chief Goldsmith. Obviously, this is an ongoing investigation. It just happened late last evening. It was a very complicated crime scene and confusing. So just bear with us. We'll provide as much as we can, but understand this is an active investigation, so we only have but so much we can share today. But Chief, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you all. No doubt we had a violent night in Norfolk last night. I would start off by asking that we keep the families and the victims' families in your thoughts and prayers as we move forward. I would also ask that you give your thoughts to the Norfolk police officers who responded to these things last night, in particular the folks who are continue to work the investigation and have been going since the event without any sleep, trying to make sure that we bring these perpetrators to justice and that we're administering to the folks like we're supposed to. They have done a mountain of work over the last few hours trying to get the things done that we need to do as we move forward through the investigation. At approximately last night at approximately 11 o'clock, we had a malicious wounding in the 9600 block of 18th Bay Street. We arrived on scene, located the victim in his living room, suffering from 3 gunshot wounds. He was transported to City of Norfolk General Hospital. We've not been able to take any statements. We do not know the circumstance on this, but we are continuing to conduct canvasses in the area and looking at other video evidence that we might be able to pull in reference to close this case out, and the investigation is still ongoing. Approximately an hour later, at 11 o'clock, or almost midnight, in the 5000 block of Killam Avenue, we had an event where 7 individuals were shot at a party. 2 of those ended up being a homicide. We arrived on scene and located multiple gunshot victims as well as additional gunshot victims in and around the area. Some had already started to transport themselves to the hospital. The ones that we found were transported to City of Norfolk General Hospital. The preliminary investigation reveals that there had been a party at that location that had been advertised on social media. Apparently a fight broke out at the party, and once the fight started, then somebody pulled out a gun and started shooting. We are continuing the investigation in this. There were multiple firearms involved, to include a pistol and a long gun. We are working with our federal partners on this. We are rushing the casings and any ballistic evidence that we have to our federal partners using the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, NIBIN, and the ATF has promised us that they are going to rush these through so that we can make any possible connections using that evidence. Again, the investigation is ongoing. I will say about all of these incidents, we are very early into this. There is not much I will be able to say because it is very important that we keep the integrity of the investigation intact, as we still have witnesses to talk to and we're still in the active part of collecting evidence to make sure we get everything that we need. Then later on 9/4/2022 at approximately 2:45 a.m., we had another homicide of an individual in the 800 block of North Military Highway. This one is still very much in active investigation. There's not a lot that I can say about it. We have not notified the next of kin yet, so we are still in the preliminary stages of that.
Is that all just 3 incidents from last night?
Yes, as of right now, that's what we know about last night.
And then from the investigation, any related at all different stuff?
No, the incidents on Killam Avenue, the incident in Ocean View, and the incident in Military Highway were all separate incidents.
And then for suspect information, does the public have any need to worry about this?
No, so as with most of our homicides, this is the result of conflict between people, we think. So this is not randomly picked. These are, and this is what is frustrating about these things right now. People get into a disagreement, they pull out a gun, and then they shoot each other. And in the process of doing that, they shoot innocent people who end up dying. That cannot be tolerated, and we are going to get after that. It is we are working very hard, and our investigators are working very hard, but this is a conflict resolution issue. This is an issue with a society who's decided to go to violence to solve their things instead of using other means. We will not tolerate that.
On Killam, it was a total of 7 shot, right? Because we heard that there might have been
There are.
victims on Monarch Way, but
They are related. That we need to be able to link that. We know of 7 victims, 2 of which have unfortunately expired, died.
So the Monarch Way people, that would have been connected.
I don't have that information right now. I've got it. As I said, we're still early, so as far as all of the linkages, I don't have those at my fingertip.
And the long gun you talked about, do you know if that was an AR-15?
I do not know that.
I know you said it happened around 11 midnight.
Midnight.
Several times. Can you explain that time where it was pertinent to send information out to the public to let everyone know that this happened, or that timeline?
So I don't have that information. I do know that we try to get it out as soon as we possible, but understand when we have a mass casualty incident such as this, there is a lot of things that have to happen. And we had, the first thing is trying to make sure that we're delivering life safety to the victims that are involved, make sure we're getting them into the ambulances and getting the first aid that they need, and then starting to secure the scene to make sure that everybody there is safe. So there is a delay when we're trying to get information out, but we try to get it out as quickly as possible so that the residents know what's going on.
And one of the other things that were brought up from a couple citizens that I've seen on Facebook is that City of Norfolk General had to shut down, but also there was needing help from other jurisdictions to get help. There wasn't EMS around. What can you guys say about the resources having to be, taken to all these situations and there not being anything?
It is not unusual in a mass casualty incident such as this to have to ask for outside help, and that is the very reason that we have mutual aid agreements with our partners, so that when one of us ends up having a large event, that we can tag each other to come help us. And that's what happened at the hospital. We ended up, as per their policies, City of Norfolk General Hospital closed down to make sure they could take care of the mass casualty incident that had taken place in the city. Ambulances were diverted to other hospitals in the system. And we called for help to make sure we could manage the crowds. As you can imagine, with 7 victims, families show up, all of that needs to be controlled, and we asked for help from our partners. And I want to thank the police departments of all Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, and Chesapeake for having shown up to give us aid when we needed it.
But should citizens at all be concerned that some of the volume wasn't able to be handled in Norfolk? There was some concern about what was happening in the city, but you're saying that's normal in this kind of situation?
That is absolutely normal, this kind of incident. It is what happens. We have protocols. We work with the hospitals. Our emergency manager was in the EOC to help traffic, route this traffic where it needed to be. This is just what happens.
You said you guys found this information from social media posts?
That's still, I can't comment on that. This is, we did see some evidence of social media, but we are still trying to figure out what happened there.
Some of the neighbors also said that they weren't sure if people were actually living in that residence. So do you know if they broke into?
We are still exploring all of that through the investigation.
You said in some of the cases that interviews weren't taken yet. Is that because of a staffing issue?
That is not because of the staffing issue. This is a major incident that is going to take a while to get the interviews done.
Chief or Dr. Filer, whoever wants to take this, but the rise in crime, property and violent crime, how much of it is attributable to the fact that there's just so many vacancies within the department?
So I'm going to answer that. Dr. Fowler can certainly answer from the manager's standpoint. I'll answer as the chief. We have rearranged our department to account for that. And we have a patrol enhancement strategy going. We are getting people out, particularly in the hours that we need them to be able to handle it. The very fact that we were able to handle this incident and get resources on scene to be able to address it and get the aid to the people that we needed to indicates the effectiveness of that strategy. Now, I will tell you, there is no policing strategy if somebody gets mad at somebody and pulls out a gun. There just isn't, right? That is access to firearms. That is not being able to control emotions. That is not being able to gauge an effective conflict resolution. If somebody gets angry with somebody and decides to pull out a gun and shoot them, there's no policing strategy for that. If we had a department of 1,200, there's no policing strategy for that.
I know the NIBIN system works fairly fast in certain situations. ATF says they expedite the request. Do you know if these weapons were stolen or?
I don't have that information.
And Norfolk State put out a statement that some of these students, some of the victims were students. Can you talk on were any of these victims in the Killam shooting students at NFU?
I have not had a chance to review Norfolk State University's press release yet, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other. Right now, they're just folks that we're trying to help. Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Mayor. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, based on your comments, I was just wondering if you felt like prosecution right now in the city was lacking or needed to be addressed, or were you just kind of overall talking about it?
Yeah, it takes a shared responsibility and a prosecutorial philosophy and practice that speaks to justice, but more importantly, the voice of victims are realized and heard loud and clear. We want persons who commit crimes in the city of Norfolk arrested and prosecuted and put away. I also want to thank Sheriff Barron for being here. He's been a partner in supporting all of our efforts. And Sheriff Barron, why don't you share some of the things that you've been doing to help?
Yes. Thank you. First, I just want to say that our hearts, again, I'll echo what the chief said, our hearts go out to the victims of violent crime in the city of Norfolk. And as most of you are aware, I've had 2 deputies who have been shot within the last 3 or 4 weeks. We had a police officer who was shot, who's among the violent crime victims that we've been seeing. And you add that on to what happened last night. Our community needs to come together along with law enforcement. Law enforcement can't do it by itself. The community needs the help. If the old adage, if you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. If you hear about something, say something. Even if you didn't witness it yourself. There's a lot of people in our community that know the people who are committing the crimes in our community. They need to speak up. They need to help us make our community safer. That's extremely important. Call 911, call a detective, call Crime Line, whatever you think you need to do to protect yourself, but also to be a partner in making our community safer. You just need to do it. I stand here, and I was asked to be here by the mayor, and I stand here in support of the mayor and the city of Norfolk and the chief of police and our police department and all of his officers in their efforts in the rising trend of gun violence and crime in our community. I can just say on a regular basis, I listen to the police radio going back and forth from work and when I'm sitting in my office. And I hear these young men and women who are out there working our streets courageously going into harm's way every single day to keep our community safe. One of the things we have to do as a community is say thank you to the men and women of the Norfolk Police Department. We have to appreciate them. We have to let them know that we value them. And we have to do that as a community and show that we support our police department. The sheriff's office, we sit here and we also stand ready to be a force multiplier for the police department. We're already doing that. We're partnering the sheriff's deputies with police officers for security details out there. Where we can do that, we're going to do that. I had a meeting recently with the chief of police on ways that the sheriff's office can help to reduce stress on police staffing in areas related to dealing with the mentally ill in our community. And we're going to do that so that some of those officers can be freed up and be out on patrol and do the job that we need them to do to keep our community safe. There's other ideas that are in the works for the sheriff's office to see what we can do to help. But we all got to come together. And I'll just echo what the mayor says. It's got to be a team effort. You know, everyone that's in our criminal justice system, whether it's our prosecutor's office, our judicial system, the sheriff's office, the police department, and the community, we all just need to come together to do our part to make our community safe. And with that, I thank you.
We're going to end it with here. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you being here on a Sunday afternoon, and we will send out prepared remarks from the mayor via email shortly. Thank you.
Yes.
They did.
19 and 24.
Yeah. Once we got this
It was just gonna. It was a side, but I was gonna say, he's got